The human's skull cracked audibly as Pryla slammed it against the podium, blue blood trickling from its nose and ears, but it still insolently gasped for breath, refusing to die like the pathetic meatbag it was. "This human sabotaged our mining operation, and many Tarkalians died," Pryla roared. "It is an act of war. I demand we execute this Ambassador Webb immediately." Skull ringing, vision spinning, Webb spat blood. He croaked defiantly, "I didn't do it. I want a fair trial." The council chamber erupted into shouting. Some wanted to torture the truth out of Webb. Others said killing Webb would start a war. More wanted to throw Webb out the airlock and be done with it. Suddenly a booming voice cut through the cacophony. "Incoming transmission from Earth." Admiral Deckard's scarred face appeared on the view screen. He looked straight at Pryla. "If you harm a single hair on Ambassador Webb's head, we will consider it an act of war against Earth, and you do not want war with us. Remember the last time you underestimated humanity's strength?" Pryla's scales rippled as he recalled humanity's victory over the Kaldari, despite being laughably outnumbered. He glanced around the council chamber. Some delegates looked worried, others looked annoyed. But all were silent as the transmission ended, and all stared at the bloody human standing defiantly before them, proclaiming his innocence. Webb stood straight and proud. He had to get these bickering fools to investigate the real saboteur and prevent another attack. If he failed, if they killed him, then humanity would be dragged into a hopeless interstellar war once again. Millions would die, entire worlds would burn. Everything depended on Webb exposing the true culprit. The Council wanted blood, but even they would hesitate to kill a human. The alien guards shoved Webb roughly into his quarters, the door hissing shut and locking behind him with an ominous finality. He collapsed into a chair, wincing as his bruised ribs protested at the sudden movement. As Webb sat in the dimly lit room, frustration and desperation clawed at his mind. He couldn't just sit here while that bastard Pryla got away with murder. Every minute he spent under house arrest was another minute the real saboteur had to cover their tracks. Webb's eyes flicked to the communications console built into the wall. It was a long shot, but maybe, just maybe, he still had a few friends left on this godforsaken station. He limped over and began typing out a message. "Zevon, it's Webb. I need your help. Meet me in my quarters ASAP. Come alone." He hit send and slumped against the wall, hoping against hope that the young Tarkalian aide would answer his plea. To Webb's relief, a response pinged back a few minutes later. "On my way. We'll use service tunnels to avoid detection." True to his word, Zevon emerged from a hidden access panel 20 minutes later, his green scales shimmering with sweat. "Ambassador Webb, are you all right?" Zevon asked, rushing over to help Webb into a chair. "I'll live," Webb grunted. "Listen, Zevon, we don't have much time. I didn't sabotage that mine. I was framed, and I think Pryla is behind it." Zevon's eyes widened. "Pryla? But why would he—" "No, you're right. He's been pushing to take control of the mining operation for months. This would be the perfect excuse." Webb nodded grimly. "I need proof. Anything tying him to the sabotage. Communiques, financial records, disgruntled associates, whatever you can find." "I'll do my best, Ambassador. But we must tread carefully. If Pryla discovers what we're doing—" "I know the risks," Webb said firmly. "But the alternative is war. Millions will die if we can't stop this." As Zevon slipped back into the service tunnel, promising to return with any evidence he could gather, Webb turned his attention to the news feeds scrolling across the room's view screen. The headlines made his blood run cold. Terran battlecruisers deploy to colony worlds as tensions mount. Council Earth negotiations break down. Terran ambassador ejected from talks. Pryla calls for Terran ambassador's immediate execution. The plan was moving faster than Webb had anticipated. He and Zevon were in a desperate race against time now. If they failed, if they couldn't find the proof they needed to clear humanity's name— Webb shook his head. Failure was not an option. He would find a way to stop this war, or he would die trying. For the sake of both their peoples, he had to. Webb's heart pounded as he and Zevon crept through the dimly lit service tunnels, the damning evidence clutched tightly in their hands. They had to confront Prylar now, before he could cover his tracks or do more damage. As they approached Prylar's private quarters, muffled voices drifted through the door. Webb and Zevon exchanged a glance. It sounded like Prylar was meeting with his conspirators. Webb nodded to Zevon, and together they burst through the door, startling the room's occupants. Prylar leapt to his feet, his scales rippling with shock and rage. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" Prylar demanded. Webb held up the evidence. "It's over, Prylar. We know you're behind the sabotage. You framed humanity to gain control of the mining operation." Prylar's guards reached for their weapons, but Webb and Zevon stood their ground. The tension in the room was palpable, everyone poised on a razor's edge. Just as it seemed violence would erupt, the door hissed open again. A group of Tarkalian soldiers loyal to Zevon poured in, their weapons trained on Prylar and his conspirators. "Stand down," the lead soldier barked. "Prylar, you and your associates are under arrest for treason and conspiracy." Realizing they were outmatched, Prylar and his co-conspirators reluctantly surrendered their weapons. Webb let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. They'd done it. They'd exposed the truth. But as Webb and Zevon escorted Prylar and his cronies through the station's corridors towards the council chambers, the deck suddenly shuddered beneath their feet. Alarms blared, red lights flashing. "What's happening?" Zevon shouted over the cacophony. A nearby console crackled to life. "Attention all personnel. Unknown alien ships have emerged from hyperspace and are attacking the station. This is not a drill. All combat units to battle stations." In the confusion, Prylar and his conspirators made their move. They overpowered their guards and disappeared into the chaos, taking advantage of the sudden attack to escape. Webb cursed. They'd been so close, but there was no time to dwell on it now. He had to focus on defending the station and protecting the council. As he and Zevon raced towards the command center, Webb's mind raced. Who were these mysterious attackers? What did they want? Rounding a corner, Webb skidded to a halt. A group of alien soldiers, clad in unfamiliar armor and wielding strange weapons, were advancing down the corridor, and at their head, barking orders in a guttural language, was a being unlike any Webb had ever seen. The alien leader's eyes met Webb's, and for a moment everything seemed to freeze. Then the alien raised its weapon, aiming directly at Webb's chest. The alien leader grinned cruelly, aiming his strange weapon at Webb's heart. "Surprised, human? Prylar sends his regards." Webb's eyes widened. "Prylar hired you to attack the station? This is all just a diversion?" "Very good," the alien chuckled. "And now you will—" Zevon slammed into the alien from the side, knocking him to the ground. They grappled for the weapon as Webb dove for cover. Alarms blared and panicked shouts echoed through the corridor as the battle raged. Webb grabbed a fallen blaster and fired, striking the alien leader in the chest. The creature crumpled dead. "Prylar's trying to escape," Zevon shouted over the chaos. "We have to stop him." They fought their way through the station, dodging blaster fire and cutting down the mysterious attackers. The hangar bay doors loomed ahead. Webb's heart pounded. They had to reach Prylar before he could flee. They burst into the hangar, blasters ready. Prylar stood at the base of a sleek ship, his scales glinting in the harsh light. "It's over, Prylar," Webb shouted. "Surrender now." Prylar laughed, a harsh grating sound. "You don't understand, do you, human? Your kind destroyed my homeworld, slaughtered my people, and the Council covered it up to protect you." Webb staggered back, stunned. Earth had destroyed a planet, murdered a species. It couldn't be true. "I lost everything because of you," Prylar snarled, "and now I will take everything from you. I will burn your worlds, enslave your children, until humanity is nothing but a memory." Prylar turned and strode up the ramp. The ship's engines roared to life. Webb didn't hesitate. He sprinted forward, leaping onto the rising landing gear. Metal dug into his hands as he clung on, the ship rocketing out of the hangar and into open space. Zevon watched helplessly as the ship disappeared, carrying Webb and Prylar into the stars. Webb hauled himself hand over hand, the void of space yawning beneath him. He had to get inside, had to stop Prylar. He reached the airlock, wrenching it open with a scream of tortured metal. Alarms shrieked as Webb clambered inside, sealing the lock behind him. He stalked through the ship, following the sound of Prylar's enraged shouts. The bridge doors hissed open. Prylar whirled, eyes blazing with hate. You couldn't just die quietly, could you?" "It's not our way," Webb said grimly. They clashed in a whirlwind of punches and kicks. Console screens shattered, sparks raining down on them. Blood splattered the deck. Webb slammed Prylar into the helm, bones crunching. Prylar howled, lashing out with taloned hands, ripping into Webb's flesh. Warnings flashed across the cracked screens. The ship shuddered, tearing itself apart. Prylar and Webb traded blows, desperate, savage, neither willing to yield. With a final wrenching effort, Webb drove his fist into Prylar's throat. Cartilage snapped. Prylar gurgled, collapsing. Webb sagged against the sparking console, breath ragged. He'd done it. Prylar was dead. The Council was safe. Humanity was safe. But the cost. The ship bucked, hull plates ripping away. The screech of rending metal filled the air. Webb dragged himself to the viewport, staring out at the infinite starscape. No escape pods. The ship was disintegrating around him. This was the end. Webb closed his eyes as the vacuum of space rushed in. He thought of Earth, blue and green and so very far away, of the sacrifices he'd made, the friends he'd lost. He thought of the truth Prylar had revealed, the terrible secret the Council had kept, the burden of humanity's sins. As Webb's atoms scattered across the void, the galaxy erupted in turmoil. The revelation of humanity's role in the destruction of Prylar's homeworld sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Species that had once called humanity friend now looked upon them with distrust and rage. In the council chamber, a new voice rose above the din. Zulkor of the long-subjugated Creel stood tall, his black eyes glinting. "The humans have shown their true nature," Zulkor roared. "Destroyers of worlds, betrayers of trust. They must be stripped of their power, their influence." Murmurs of assent rippled through the gathered delegates. Zulkor smiled, sensing the tide turning in his favor. Zevon watched from the Tarkalian pod, scales prickling with unease. As the council descended into argument and accusation, he slipped away, mind racing. In his quarters, Zevon pored over classified reports, piecing together a chilling picture. Zulkor was mobilizing ships, weapons, soldiers, a war fleet aimed at the heart of human space. Zevon's claws dug into his palms. He had to stop this, had to preserve the peace Webb had given everything to protect. But how? The Council was fractured, humanity's allies abandoning them. An idea took shape, desperate and daring. The colonies, the frontier worlds where human and alien lived side by side. If he could rally them, forge an alliance. Zevon worked frantically, calling in favors, trading secrets. Slowly a resistance formed. Human generals, alien warlords, all united by a common cause. But Zulkor was not idle. His forces gathered on a nameless world, a bleak rockball far from prying eyes. And there, Zevon's ragtag fleet met them in battle. The void lit up with the fire of 1,000 suns. Ships clashed, soldiers screamed and died. Zevon fought, bled, watched friends fall. The cost was high, so terribly high. In the end they prevailed. Zulkor's armada lay shattered, the warlord himself a cooling corpse. But the victory was ashes in Zevon's mouth. He looked out over the battlefield, strewn with broken ships and broken bodies. So much death, so much destruction. And for what? The Council was gone, its power broken. The galaxy lay in chaos, old alliances shattered, new threats rising. Zevon sagged, the weight of it all crashing down upon him. They had won the battle, but the war was just beginning. He thought of Webb, of the man's indomitable spirit, his unwavering belief in a better future. That dream seemed so distant now, so fragile. But it was a dream worth fighting for, worth dying for, as Webb had, as so many had. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.